Hey, this is Chris from Mission Capital, and today's video is part two in a mini series on adjusted EBITDA. So, yesterday we talked about the big picture, what EBITDA is. Today, we're actually going to go ahead and build that schedule. If you missed the first video, just go ahead and watch that one first before we do this one. So, what I'm looking at here is now a P&L or an income statement of a company. I've got their sales, their cost of goods, their gross profit, and a bunch of expenses down here, and I come down to their net income. And our job is going to be to build up the EBITDA, or more accurately, the adjusted EBITDA. And so to get that, we're going to walk through a series of schedules. And the first one is EBITDA as defined. And this is the earnings. So the earnings is the net income. They're kind of interchangeable terms. The net income before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. And so since this is as defined, right, this is how everybody talks about EBITDA. These are going to be the definitional adjustments first. So we're going to be making our way from net income up to an EBITDA number, which again is a proxy of the normalized free cash flow of the business because that's what we're trying to build. So let's go ahead and do this first part here. I'm going to look for the interest. I'm just going to go equals, come up to my income statement here. Where's the interest? Got it down here. So 180. The reason we add back interest is because the financing structure of a business could change. It may only have interest because a private equity firm bought it out and it's paying interest on that debt. If it was 100% equity financed, it may not need that interest expense. And so we add it back because it could be normalized out of the business. There's no taxes for this example, so we'll skip that. There's no amortization either, but if you had them, you would add them back. We do have depreciation, so I'm going to link to that one. Equals, come up to my depreciation. Here it is right there. Hit enter. Why do we add this back? Well, depreciation is a non-cash expense, right? And we are trying to solve for the normalized free cash flow of a business. So we add that back as well. And so we're saying at this point, even though the net income is 550, after we've adjusted out the financing structure or the interest and the non-cash expense of the depreciation, we have 270 of definitional adjustments. And so our EBITDA as defined, right, the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization is 820. So we've walked from 550 to 820. And so now we get into some of the tricky stuff. Remember yesterday we talked about opinions. And so management has some opinions as to what actually happened in their business above and beyond the definitional adjustments here. So you can see we're starting with the EBITDA as defined. Here's our 820 here, and here's the 820 here. But what management wants us to know is, hey, in addition to these, we also had an R&D project that we're never going to do again, and we also hired a consultant that was on a one-time basis. And so on a normalized basis going forward, we won't have this R&D expense and we won't have this consulting expense. And so even though your EBITDA as defined was 820, if we strip out these expenses, which again are our opinion, we have 250 total of discretionary adjustments. And so our management adjusted EBITDA is actually over a million. So now you can see we're really starting to walk here, 550, 820, and then over a million. And now we've actually finally got one more tier. So diligence adjusted EBITDA. This would probably happen if a private equity firm had recently purchased the business. And so I've got a couple placeholders here for transaction expenses as well as the private equity management fee. So let's go take a look if we can find those. And I conveniently placed them right at the bottom here. Let's say that for the PE firm to close this deal, they had to spend 500,000 on transaction expenses. So that would be advisors, consultants, lawyers, etc. And then they also take a fee as part of managing the business. So this definitely was one time in nature. This was just to get the deal done. And then this management fee, even though it's ongoing on a temporary basis, eventually that PE firm is going to exit. And so this cost is going to go away. So let's go down to our diligence adjusted schedule and link those up. So the transaction expenses, I'm going to do equals, come up here. We're going to add those back. And then same for the private equity management fee. I'm going to do equals, come up, link to these, and I add that back. And so now we're saying after taking into account the private equity firm, which again at the end of the day is temporary, we now have 700 of diligence adjustments, and our diligence adjusted EBITDA is almost 1.8 million at a margin of nearly 20%. So let's take a look at that. Right, we've gone from net income, a margin of 6%, but then we've added back the definitional adjustments, so the interest, the taxes, the depreciation, and the amortization to get to an initial proxy of free cash flow. But then management said, well, hey, there's some other stuff too that we're not going to have in the future. So we got to add those back also. So now we've got our management adjusted EBITDA. And then finally, the private equity firm had its own expenses that we need to add back as well. And so we finally get to this diligence adjusted EBITDA, or what is our estimate or approximation of the free cash flow of the business going forward on a normalized basis. And that is the whole thesis here. So in tomorrow's video, we're going to take all of these adjustments and move them back into the P&L so we can show what the P&L is going to look like on a go forward or pro forma basis. So we'll do that one tomorrow. That's it for this one. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next one.